Okay.
I hear it's quite warm actually in the UK right now.
It's very warm. Oh, hi guys. Thanks for joining.
Hello.
As always, we'll probably start 1 or 2 minutes past just to let a few of the others join. No doubt downloading some kind of widget. But no, in answer to your question, it's super warm outside. So thank you to all those from the UK that are joining this instead of sunbathing. Or working very hard, of course, on other things. What's it like in Berlin?
You know, these days you can actually, take your computers outdoors. So maybe there's some people joining us from outside on their balconies and porches.
Yeah, it'd be nice. That would be nice. Maybe next time we can try that. So guys, just for those that have joined, yeah, we'll probably start literally in about 60 seconds or so, just giving everyone a chance. But as always, we've got the Q&A in the chat open. So do throw any questions out there, anything you want to know, anything that you've found interesting that may be nothing to do with this. Always interested to hear from you guys. And hopefully we'll stick around to the end, and then you can go and enjoy the sun. Oh, good evening. So Aaron, where are you from? If it's evening, I'm guessing Asia somewhere. Not written yet. Cool. All right, okay, we've got quite a few people here. Let's just give it another 30 seconds and then we can get going.
Okay.
Is it sunny in Berlin or not too bad?
It's overcast. The weather is nice, but it's a bit windy and overcast. So
it's quite brisk.
It's yeah.
Okay. All right. I reckon we can get going. So, cool, guys. Thank you very much for joining this week's session. I don't. It must be like number 8 or 9 now. So, yeah, they've been flying by. And so this should be a really interesting one. Hope you agree. And it'll be around really looking at interpreting results and taking actions off the back of them. With a bit of an EyeQuant focus, but it's not just EyeQuant, there's wider pieces as well. If we just jump onto the next slide, I think.
Just a brief introduction, I guess.
So I'm not so important here. My job is simply to facilitate the great questions you're going to be asking. So please do make it interactive. No time is a bad time to ask questions, and I'll try and feed them in at the right time, or just interrupt Melina straight away.
Yes, please.
So I'm not so important, but Melina, obviously you can introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks again for joining. I'm Melina. I am a customer success manager here at EyeQuant. I've been doing this for going on 4 years now. So, hopefully I can share some of my knowledge with you guys today. I'm very excited to talk about how we can leverage attention. So yeah, excited to do this class with you guys today.
Awesome. And then I think we just got the boring slide, which always falls to me, which is great. So a reminder, which is that we always record these sessions and make them available afterwards. Usually takes about 24 hours. So feel free to share with anybody. And it does say we'll take questions at the end, but actually do ask them throughout, because quite often they're really relevant to the content we're covering at the time. So I'll just to fit them in as and when is good. But not just questions. If you see stuff that, because this is a mix of, we've got customers and just experts from the industry so if you've got some of your own experiences that resonate or feel differently, please do share as well. Otherwise, that's enough for me for now, and I will respectfully hand over. And thanks again.
Thanks, Chris. Okay, so for those of you who have not experienced EyeQuant before, just a bit of background. EyeQuant is an AI for instant objective analyses of designs, and this is commonly used for web and mobile interfaces, but can be applied to any form of content. It's using artificial neural networks to analyze a design within seconds and provide attention-based feedback. But basically, EyeQuant simulates an actual eye tracking study every time you analyze a design with 90% accuracy, however, without spending the precious time and resources to do so. So at EyeQuant, we live and breathe predictive data, and we're focused on attention, visibility, and perception of content. And over the years, we've actually accumulated a wealth of knowledge and expertise that we want to share with others in the digital community and realm. Predictive attention data is something we feel really strongly about and should be a key part of any design process. We've actually received a lot of recurring questions, which stems from a gap in resources to learn more about eye tracking and prediction-based data when it comes to design. So we've started these classes to share some of our experience and knowledge, and today's course is going to focus on leveraging eye tracking for user journeys. So today we're going to look at how to use predictive eye tracking, how to leverage that data, specifically for user journeys, and how to enable design decisions with eye tracking data. And we're going to start by just briefly explaining the difference between descriptive and predictive data and how they're generally applied. So descriptive data generally uses a capture and collect approach when gathering user data. So you receive a summary of information based on data which is collected over a period of time. And we can look at tools with click data, scrolling patterns, or engagement analytics that enable us to better understand how our designs perform once users have started interacting with them. And with descriptive data, you're able to strategize better iterations or designs once the data has been collected. Now, predictive data, just as it sounds, offers a predictive approach to gathering data. And generally speaking, people use machine learning, AI, artificial neural networks like we do, or deep learning to generate this type of data. So algorithms are collecting data and collating it instead of collecting information from users. And what this means is that you can gather data at any point in the design process, and obviously much more quickly. So you can use predictive data during the iteration and design phase, not just once the content has gone live. So essentially you can simulate user feedback instantaneously, giving you a head start in generating the best content. So predictive eye tracking generates instantaneous data which simulates how people look at or perceive your designs. And this means that you can test the visual response for any piece of content and make sure that it aligns with your engagement goals. In our case, we're using artificial neural networks that are built from actual user testing. We've collected millions of visibility and perception-based data points from real live humans, and then we use machine learning to map out the underlying perceptual patterns in that data. So combined, the user studies and machine learning actually enable EyeQuant to predict where people will look in the first few seconds of landing on a design with 90% accuracy as a real eye tracking study. So every design has a specific engagement target. Now, whether that engagement is to log in, learn more, add to cart, talk to their doctor, each design is targeting a specific response from the visitor. And we know that people are forming their first impressions within milliseconds. And the thing that forms our first impressions is what we see. So this indicates that we have an extremely small window to elicit the right response from visitors and convince them to engage in the way that we want them to. So for that reason, it's really important that we ensure key content is immediately visible and that we leverage visitor attention in the right direction. And attention can be a fickle thing. So what works for one design may not work for another. And despite best intentions and all the experience in the world, visitors might still become distracted or frustrated or disengaged. And eye tracking data gives you an opportunity to validate that visitors are looking exactly where they should. So it can help you to identify distracting content that increases cognitive load, and you can make sure that all the effort and resources that go into making your designs are leveraged to their fullest potential and are received exactly the way you intend them to be. So as promised, we're going to look at how we can leverage eye tracking specifically for user journeys. And today we're going to look at two different scenarios. FIT is a mobile fitness app, and EyeQuant is a CRM management tool. And in each case, the target engagement journey is going to be analyzed from a visibility perspective to understand how visitors perceive the experience and what could be done better. So first, we're going to take a look at FIT, and they're aiming to sign up new users with the promise of a 14-day free trial. And specifically, we want to look at how easy it is for users to go through the sign-up journey, as well as whether the motivating content is visible enough. So FIT's goals include standing out from other mobile fitness apps, creating enough incentive for new subscribers to join, and also to make the sign-up process easy to navigate so that users don't get frustrated along the way. Now we're going to look at the individual eye tracking results for each of the 7 journey steps listed here. And through this process, you will notice some inconsistency in branding. You'll also see that the valuable or motivating content is not always as visible or leveraged as well as it could be. And there's also too many unclear steps, which can actually increase cognitive load for visitors. So the start of our user journey actually begins on FIT's pricing page. And this is where we start to, or where they start to build brand awareness, as well as generating some motivation via the 14-day free trial. And at this point, FIT is leveraging the most valuable region in the design to advertise that 14-day free trial. And they're also leveraging that #1 rated fitness app. So that's incentive and social proof. So far, so good. The big bold letters and where they're placed, so the placement of them and also the contrast draw attention. The only problem is that it's not a clickable element, and it's not necessarily clear where we're supposed to go next and what we're supposed to do. The use of the large background imagery and the big bold text creates a perception of excitement. There's hardly any clutter to be found at this segment, so we have a very clear and very stimulating design, and this is the beginning of our introduction to the brand. So if we scroll to the next segment, and this is the next step in the journey, we can read about the premium benefits, which will hopefully motivate visitors to enjoy some of the exclusive value adds that premium can offer. Unfortunately, the first impressions of this design segment are completely have missed the premium benefits heading, which adds context to what we're doing at this segment. And we see this wall of text first. So nothing really stands out to give us context, and we don't see an action button. And there's a probability that users will scroll past this segment without getting much value from it. And in fact, the clarity has decreased significantly from the previous segment, which was 92, it's now 74. And this indicates that this segment will increase cognitive load. And if the eyes aren't sure where to land, it could lead to frustration and disengagement. The excitement level for this brand is inconsistent as well, when we see a significant drop compared to the previous journey step from 84 to a 31. Not only is that a really large contrast between above and below the fold, it may not convey the right message at this phase in the journey, because we're trying to highlight a premium subscription targeting an activity-based fitness market. Therefore, you may want a more exciting and stimulating design segment at this phase, at least more than 31. So then we scroll a bit further and we see the pricing and the plans. And at this point, we're supposed to select a payment schedule and see the incentives, and then scroll and click the call to action. And what we actually see is the heading and the descriptive text only. So these circles that you see here represent the order and the intensity of the fixation. And we see that almost all of the eye movements are grouped around the heading where it says your membership. The second to the last eye movement starts to wander towards the plans, but they're not getting a whole lot of love. So on the plus side, the descriptor points out again that there's this 14-day free trial. So the first 14 days is totally free. However, we still don't see a CTA button yet. And so for that, we need to keep scrolling. And clarity has fortunately increased from the previous segment, which is just in time given that we need to choose between plans and pricing. So when you think about plans and pricing, you don't want to increase cognitive load for your visitors because they're making important decisions. And so for that reason, you want to make sure to reduce cognitive load as much as possible. So it's a good thing that the clarity score is at 86. The excitement level drops even further from a 31 to a 25. Now, I might recommend that pages which require financial decisions or request personal financial details be a little less stimulating than other design segments. However, 25 is very far away from the branding that was at the top of the funnel. So by the time visitors have scrolled to this segment, they might be left feeling rather unstimulated. And of course, they're trying to choose a plan and subscribe. So it's good to be thoughtful about the perception at this point and try to stay aligned with the branding. So once we've chosen we're now heading on to the next step. And once we've chosen the plan that's right for us, we find ourselves at this stage in the user journey where we're supposed to create a FITKIT. Or at least we have the option of creating a FITKIT. And at this point, we can add these different options to our cart and hopefully be motivated to purchase or add these on. The only indication that we're actually still in the purchasing funnel is at the very top where we see a progress bar. So actually what you're looking at on the page right now are 3 different segments, and they're all a part of this FITKIT step. And so you have to scroll 3 times to get to the CTA, which moves you on to the next step. So this is sort of all inclusive in one step. And at the very top of the first segment, you'll see the progress bar, but it's completely missed. So you see the attention is all focused on the heading and the descriptive content. So at this point, visitors might be sort of confused whether they're in the right place or if they've added membership to their cart, what they're supposed to do next. So this segment actually requires us to scroll below the fold to see any type of engagement where you can actually add this fit device to your cart. And then we have to scroll twice to get to that CTA that takes us to the next step. And if we look at where the attention is spent, this part of the user journey could be quite confusing and cause visitors to exit the funnel. If they're not really sure where they are or if they've happened upon the right place. So next we can finally begin to enter our contact information and confirm our location, continue on to the next step. The content, the context is clearly visible, as is the location, so, select the location. The clarity score is super, super high, and that's really, really good considering that it's a form field and it requires visitors to provide data. So as much as you can, of course, just as last time, reduce cognitive load when you're asking visitors to submit their own data or make decisions, the better. The excitement is lower than ever before though, and that's far removed from where we were at the top of the funnel. However, since FIT is requiring a task from visitors at this stage, we wouldn't expect it to be as high as one of the incentive steps. So, probably finding that balance would be advisable at this stage. So here we are at step 6 out of 7. And at this point, we're able to review our order and the payment schedule and any add-ons that we've chosen. It's actually the last stage in the journey before we enter in our payment details. So it's a really good opportunity to motivate visitors to continue. This is the point where in a lot of cases, in a lot of journeys like this, a lot of users tend to drop off. Maybe they're intending to come back later, or they need to think about it since it's a purchase. Or maybe they just need to go and compare other options. But what we see is actually at first attention is being distributed to multiple areas of the page, which could indicate that the eyes don't know where to focus, especially on a mobile design like this. When you have a lot less real estate to work with, you tend to see attention not quite as spread as you do in this first segment. It's more common to see the attention distributed in the way of the second segment. So above the fold, the eyes are sort of going all over the page, and below the fold, the attention is focused on the descriptive text. So on the one hand, we can clearly see what we're going to purchase and how much it will cost. But on the other hand, it's not very exciting at all. It's a little more exciting than the form field, but other than the 14-day free trial, there isn't a whole lot to motivate visitors to take the next step. And again, this is where you want to get them to commit to that 120 pounds in this case, and move on to the next step. And it, other than that 14-day free trial, you know, there's not a whole lot of incentive there, or excitement for that matter. Now, if customers have decided to get to this stage where they're entering their card details, this is the end of the journey, or at least where we're going to stop. And you know, this step in the journey is actually really clear. We can see clearly where we are in that journey, so we can see that progress bar, and at which point, you know, in that progress we are. And we can also see the context for the page where we're supposed to enter our card details. So there's high clarity at this stage, and again, this is really good for this stage where you're asking people to enter in their financial details. So we want to try and remove as much of that cognitive load as possible, so that visitors aren't too distracted to enter in their financial details. So from the top of the funnel through the last step, we went from really high stimulation to very, very low, and a low excitingness score for a fitness app isn't necessarily aligned to the target market. So it certainly could be more exciting at different stages of the journey. And also the different engagement elements could be more obvious or clear, and they could leverage attention more carefully to incentivize visitors to subscribe. So that's the journey there for Fit. And now we're going to actually move. Yeah. Yes,
we just had a question, which is, so is it better to have high clarity and excitingness score if possible?
Yes. Yes, and well, I'm going to say yes for clarity. The clarity score indicates how much cognitive load is placed on visitors for each of the design segments that you analyze. And, you know, we live in the attention economy, and we want to try and remove as much of the distracting content as possible. And so as much as we can provide our customers and our visitors with clean and clear designs, we want to do that as much as we can. Now, of course, you don't want to compromise critical content, and there are some types of designs that will inherently have lower clarity scores than others. What we see for mobile designs, especially through a user journey like this, we do tend to see higher clarity scores on average for top performing brands. There are some types of designs that have a lot of text, you know, blog posts, for example, newsletters, that will have a lower clarity score than, say, your average homepage on a mobile app. But as much as you can, reduce clutter and reduce cognitive load for your visitors, so it makes it easier for them to find what they're looking for, and be motivated by the right elements, so to say.
Cool. And just one
for exciting. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Chris.
No, you carry on. We had another question. You carry on.
Yeah. So for excitingness, I talked a little bit about clarity and almost forgot excitingness. Excitingness is a metric that shows how the amygdala is actually responding to the stimuli, and what you want to aim for actually depends on your industry and your brand. So, for example, a corporate law firm may not want the same excitingness score as a music streaming service. And so there's a couple of factors to keep in mind. And what we're looking at for this type of user journey, it's a mobile fitness app, and it's targeting that type of market that's looking for at-home fitness through a mobile app. So they're active people or wanting to be active. And so having a higher having a higher excitingness score would be advisable at this stage. There's the next user journey actually that we're going to be looking at is a CRM lead marketing software that's targeting businesses. And in that case, you'll see that they have much lower excitingness scores, and that's quite aligned with that type of business. So there's a couple of factors that go into deciding, you know, what type of excitingness score you should have. But what I always recommend is to try and stay consistent with that branding. You know, if you're going to have really high excitingness scores at the top of the funnel, try to stay consistent as much as you can throughout that user journey.
Perfect. You answered the second question.
Oh, great. Okay. Glad I could anticipate that. All right, so the next one that we're going to look at is Eloqua, and this is an Oracle brand, a B2B software, which is offering that CRM lead management to medium and large businesses. Now, customers are likely going to be searching for a lead management service if they get to this page. So it's always good to keep in mind when you're thinking about that user journey, and I'm sure you all are anyway, to think about where that sort of target user is coming from. And the same applies when you're looking at visibility data. So at this point, customers are looking for more information about what Eloqua can do for them and their business. And Eloqua needs to stand out from the competition and motivate potential customers to learn more and get in touch. So there's actually 4 stages to this user journey, and we're going to see that the main product page is not very clear, and it's actually difficult to find the engagement elements in order to get in touch. So once we find the buttons, we then need to fill out forms to get to the next step. So let's take a look here. So we're going to start at the product page above the fold, and there's actually 4 segments to the product page. So this is the first of those 4 segments. At this point, Eloqua needs to build brand awareness and begin educating and motivating potential customers to get in touch, learn more, get a quote, all that good stuff. So those who do wish to get in touch need to engage with one of the CTAs that allow them to do so. So what we're looking at right now is attention data on a granular scale. So each of these 3 selected regions that you see in the overlay above, or overlay on the image, has been measured for visibility in comparison to the average visibility of the design, which is 0. This actually enables us to compare the different engagement elements and confirm the informational hierarchy of the key content. So the header is actually the most visible region of the design at 117%. And by comparison, the contact engagement elements are significantly less visible at 11 and negative 24%. With our regions of interest tool, you can actually measure the visibility of pixels on a granular scale. So you can have percentages over 100 or even 200 and even negative percentages. And what it's doing is it's showing you the relative visibility of these different elements so that you can better understand how much or how little attention is paid to different features. And this is especially useful when you're explaining why certain design decisions need to be made or why designs don't perform as well. So confirming that informational hierarchy is an important step, of course, towards getting the right first impressions. I do want to just take a moment to make sure that everyone understands this feature, because I know that the percentages can sometimes throw people off when we see over 100 or a negative. Does this feature make sense for everyone?
We've had one yes.
Great. Okay. If anything is confusing at all, just let me know and I'll be happy to come back to this. All right. So with most of the fixation points gathered around the heading, it's important actually to leverage the area with value-driven content. So one of the ways that you can utilize eye tracking data is to see where most of the attention is going and then make sure that whatever content is in that area is driving a lot of value. So this is the most valuable region on the page. This is where all of the fixation, this is the entire fixation sequence, so to speak. So this is what people will see first. This is what's going to help build brand awareness, and it's going to help motivate customers if leveraged correctly. So hopefully customers will have enough context already to see the value in the information in the way that it's presented. However, it's also possible that they could be confused, or they don't know what the Gartner Magic Quadrant is. So at this stage, they're hoping that potential customers already have some context when reading this heading, but that does put a little bit of the onus on the customer, on the potential customer, to have some background before they've gotten to this point. So just some food for thought. As we noted before, we're looking at an excitement level of 33. 33 is lower than technically the average. However, when we look at business suites like this, it's actually pretty aligned with the average for this type of industry. So, you know, again, what we're going to be looking at is consistency. Not necessarily that it needs to be more exciting or less exciting, but that it's consistent with the branding that they're trying to build. A clarity score of 64 is pretty low. So, you know, that does indicate that there's quite a bit of clutter and that the cognitive load is quite high. As we scroll below the fold, we're going to continue our sort of EyeQuant education journey. And at this point, EyeQuant is hoping to showcase different elements that increase its perceived value to potential customers. In order to educate potential customers, those customers actually need to be motivated to read and learn. It's a little bit risky, especially these days, to assume that people are going to want to spend time reading a lot of text before they're incentivized properly. So when you want people to read and engage with a lot of text, it's really important to make it worth their time, or at least give them the perception that it's worth their time. So our first impressions at this stage may lead us to be feeling overwhelmed with the amount of content. And in fact, that's confirmed by the extraordinarily low clarity score. A 38 is very, very low. Whenever I see a score that's below 50 for clarity, I always get nervous because that just means there's a ton of clutter on the page. And again, low excitement, but I wouldn't worry about it at this stage because it's aligned with a business service like this. I would be worried, however, about that clarity score.
Melina, so we have a really relevant question actually. So from Terry, you've mentioned industry standards multiple times to analyze effectiveness. Are these numbers available to EyeQuant customers? It'd be really helpful to be able to reference them. So I guess we can talk a bit about how we benchmark with each customer.
Yeah, so the numbers, as we would say, would vary from industry to industry and change with the times as different designs are you know, put out there, and you know, designs are you know, being changed all the time. And so what we recommend is that you look to the sort of top 5, top 10 brands in the industry that you're interested in and run some tests for those different brands. And we can happily have any kind of a session that you want to help you get through how to run a competitive analysis. In fact, we just ran a session last month on how to do, how to outperform competition. And so there's definitely some tips and tricks that we can share with you to get that industry benchmark. It's actually relatively easy to do and very quick. So I'd be happy to set up any sessions with people who are interested in doing that. Chris, do you have anything to add?
No, I think that sounds great.
Cool.
I'd sign up.
So in the next 2 segments, actually, this is, you know, we're still looking at the same product page, just the different segments below the fold. We actually see much of the same type of result. And, you know, we see low clarity scores and lots of content to sift through. And the majority of the attention is staying around the headers and the content below the headers. So, you know, the images don't get much attention. The buttons, the CTA buttons, the various CTAs that are available on the page don't get much, if any, attention at all. And so there's lots of content that visitors at this point have to sift through. And, you know, one of the things to bear in mind with a business service like this is that the people who are making the decisions, you know, to purchase software like this, they're actually sifting through a lot of their own content. They have a lot of cognitive load placed on them as it is, because they have to decide what software to go with, and look at various types of features that give them flexibility and help them leverage the information that they need. And so it's really important at this stage to make sure that your offering is clear and that it's very clear what they need to do next in order to get in touch and have someone help them. Generally, business services like this want to help their customers. And if at the top of the funnel, they have to sift through a lot of information in order to figure out what they're doing and what the offer is and how it can be, you know, a good fit for them, then that can be a little intimidating and overwhelming or frustrating and could cause them to disengage. So we do see some clearer incentives here at the sort of last segment in the heading, but it's still really like a lot of cognitive load being placed on the visitor. And I think most importantly, the CTA buttons are really difficult to see. So, you know, the CTA buttons to get in touch, I'm going to just scroll back up a few slides here. At the top kind of right corner, you can see there. Yeah, there it is. We're going to look at it just one more time. The CTA buttons are just not getting any attention at all. They're difficult to find. Now, one quick note, CTA buttons don't need to be the most visible thing on your page. You know, oftentimes you want the majority of your visibility and attention to go towards the motivations and the incentives, you know, the value propositions or imagery that helps to motivate people. But you don't want CTAs to be hidden. So, you know, finding that balance of leveraging attention in the right way to incentivize, but making it as easy as possible for people to find that next step is really key.
We also have a question actually. Yeah, we had a quite relevant question even, which is around you know, how often people should look at their competition to sort of gain insight and sort of get objective AI evaluations.
It's a really good idea to look at competition. And in this case, where you've got you know, a business suite that's trying to offer a service to potential customers, to businesses, medium and large businesses especially, it's really a good idea to take a look at what the other softwares are offering and how they're offering it, to see how they're performing. When you look at competition, you can get a good idea of how the target market is actually perceiving your brands. Not only can you see how other brands are leveraging attention and, you know, how much attention they place on incentives versus CTAs, or how much cognitive load is placed on visitors from their branding, but you can also see how visitors are perceiving the brands in general. So you can see which brands are perceived as more exciting, perceived as more cluttered, for example, and where you sit within that industry, so that you understand what part of the market, what section of the market is coming to you. And if you want to try and pull some of the market from other sectors, you can start to look at and get inspired by other brands, you know, as to kind of get ideas as to how you can start to achieve that.
Perfect.
So just clicking through here to the next couple phases of the stages of the journey. So if customers are in fact able to find those CTA buttons, they'll need to enter their email right away. And these days, this could be a turnoff because people are a little less willing to share their data without knowing that they're going to get some value from it. And the disclaimer at the bottom is one of the most visible regions here on this sort of small form. And that might not ease their mind about that. So it's this stage of the funnel is a little bit tricky, because even though you do, of course, want to try and get contact information right away from potential customers, this could lead them to being a little bit concerned or worried, and could cause them to leave the funnel at this stage. Hopefully they'll come back, but that's of course never a guarantee. And then finally, if we do in fact enter our email address, we're faced with a rather lengthy form field. So customers at this point need to enter their details, and again, read another disclaimer, and then scroll slightly to see the CTA. On the one hand, all of the fields are actually visible, so at least it's obvious what we need to do. So from that angle, you have a lot of context. But on the other hand, there's actually quite a bit involved for customers to get to this point. As we saw in the products and the product page, the cognitive load is really high. There's just a lot of clutter, and it's hard to sift through all of that information. There's an overload of content. And now, once they get to this phase, they're required to complete even further steps. And this is just to get in touch with someone. So as I was saying before, when you are asking customers to get in touch with you and to engage and learn more about your product, you want to try and make it as easy as possible for them to digest this content. And this is where eye tracking can become really, really handy, especially when you look at the perception-based results, because you can very clearly see where people are looking and where some of the content that's valuable and needs to be seen, where it might be getting lost. And it can help put into perspective how your brand is performing, in this case, how Eloqua is performing. They could look to other brands like HubSpot to see what their offerings look like at this phase for this type of suite. I would absolutely suggest to Eloqua to look to some of their competitors to see how they're educating potential clients.
And Harvey mentioned that Monday.com would be a good one for them to look at. Much more clear and exciting, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, so that about covers the two very different types of user journeys. But I'm happy to take any other questions that people have. And you can either use our chat tool, or if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can. You can contact us at sales@eyequant.com, and we'd be happy to set up a session with any one of you who have joined us today to talk more about specifically user journeys, or really any other questions that you have. And by the way, if you currently are a customer, then you can always just get in touch with me directly. You probably have my email address, or you can also use the chat function in the app as well to get in touch if you have any questions about this type of content, and we can schedule a one-on-one. That's no problem.
Brilliant. Thanks so much. Got thank you from other people as well. Thanks so much for me. That was awesome. I think you actually covered all the questions that came through. So I guess you just got the content right, which is awesome. Yeah, but as I say, please do reach out to us. Next week, we have Aviva coming to talk to us, which should be really good fun. They are talking about, let me get this right, how design systems can drive business value. And that's Tom Smith from Aviva. So I hope to see you guys there, and thanks for joining. I can see lots of regulars joining, so I look forward to seeing you next week. Thanks everybody, and thanks for
Thank you.